Or say. All right, we're down to just the three of us tonight, so. Dan, say friendly. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, all thanks for coming. Your pledge allegiance, public forum sign up, anybody who would like to speak, please make sure to name on the little list back there. Now announcements.
Just one announcement. I wanted to give you a heads up on January 10th. That's a Tuesday. Willamette Career Academy is going to be hosting an open house from 5 to 7. And so that'll be the opportunity for people to see all 6 of the programs that they have now fully functioning. I will give you another reminder, but just in case you want to get that on your calendar early.
Can you tell me that date again?
I know January 10th.
Thank you. And from what time again?
5 to 7. And as we get more details, I'm sure they'll put together a flyer.
And
I'll
it
make
will,
sure I get it out to you.
and it will
guys.
be in Salem, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
We should do that one.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, do you want
See where the kiddos go. All right, anything else?
Nope, I don't have anything.
All right, approval of minutes. Anything? We have anything in there that we need to worry about? Oh, yeah, as well as we go.
They were fine.
Was that just for there was 2, right? There was the regular and
The regular, just the work session.
do I make a motion for both at the same time? Or are they separate?
Both the same time. 3.1, 3.2.
Oh, you're there. I move that the Jervis School Board District #1 approve the reading of the minutes from regular and executive session September 15th, 2022, and the regular session October 20th, 2022.
Motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That's it. Okay. So I have to read this whole thing for the public forum, do I not?
Yeah.
Very good. So we're on the public forum, we have 2 people that signed up and public participation in board meetings through the school district policy PDEH-AR statements by the members of the public should be brief and concise. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, establish a time limit on discussion or oral presentation by a visitor of any topic. Speakers may offer objective criticism of school operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual school personnel. The chair will direct complaints to the appropriate means for board consideration and disposition of a legitimate complaint involving individuals. At this time, members of the public are invited to present their concerns to the board. And first thing I have on here is there you go, thank you. That's what's in- how it's called.
Oh,
Linda?
would you like to speak? You're signed up?
Did you sign up to say something?
Yes, I did.
I think you're.
You have the chair, sir.
3 minutes, thank you.
The material, this board meeting packet. You're showing that your language arts you only have about 16% of your students through. And you able to use the language. Now, I've read, this has been a problem it's been a problem for a number of years. I am gonna say, let's get something done about it, or let's get somebody else on that board. And I'm gonna toss it right now. Because there's something wrong in our primary building. And then maybe it takes some changes to get things so that we are more correct. And maybe it takes some changes to do something else. I don't know. But I'm looking at this numbers right here, and I see that we're not teaching the kids how to do their math and how to read. And those are two questions. Now, maybe some of us, a lot of us are just like myself. We've got problems seeing up close. And I understand that. But it still means that we should have better scores. Thank you.
Thank you.
And stay.
Mark Chase. Which is the officer.
I'm Mark Chase, Jersey Police Department, 592 4th Street. First off, I don't want to steal any thunder from the superintendent or Mr. Cretenhelm. But last month, I got to tell you, was an amazing month for this community. The Day of the Dead and then the health event, I only was able to attend the Day of the Dead. I was out of town this week until yesterday. But our staff was absolutely ecstatic about participating. The attendance was amazing. Everything I've heard from the community was just fabulous. You set the bar really high. And so next year it's going to be interesting to be able to meet that. I know all that activity, all the people, all the food, all that was done by a grant, but I just want to say outstanding job. I've participated in I participated in a number of communities over the years, had seen community events, even in larger communities. And that by far had the highest percentage of, I think, community people versus population I've ever seen. It was outstanding. So anyway, kudos to you guys for doing that. So I had a couple things on the agenda, or a couple things on my agenda. First off, I passed out this piece of paper here. You hear me talk about DARE a lot, but one of the things that I was able to participate is a strategic plan for the future using the SWOT analysis of strategic planning, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to your organization. DARE is going through that, and I was honored to be selected for that. But one of the things that we wanted to point out to the board, because sometimes people still ask about DARE, but this is a little highlighted brochure about the University of Greensboro, North Carolina, the study that DARE went through to determine its multi-longitudinal study, and outlined 4 specific bullets. I won't get into all of those. You could read those at your leisure, but I want to give that to you to show that DARE, keeping it real, is in the elementary school curriculum, is evidence-based, successful, and effective. And so we started that. We were in the lesson 5 of this week. And then we'll be graduating our grade schoolers in end of January. Again, we're the host agency for DARE in Oregon, and we had a Canby officer, the chief of Canby and the officer, and it looks like he'll be proposing it to the Canby School District. They came down and visited Jervis, Oregon to see what we're doing with DARE. And so it was great to be a small organization, small community, small school district. Well, we're not real small, but to be able to be an example of a larger agency coming to see how it's been successful. And then the next brochure I want to bring your attention to is if you have any questions about any of the programming, It goes through, highlights a number of area and shows, DARE is just not about grade school curriculum, about drug abuse, about bullying. We've got, online, standalone, lessons, inhalant lessons. We've got lessons on opioids, internet safety that can teach clear down to kindergarten up to the 4th grade, as well as the middle school and high school. I think I saw Tony, on there. We had a conversation this week. It's tough because of all the things coming at the middle school and all the preparation that they need to do for getting their benchmarks met. But it looks like we're going to try to be able to squeeze in some of the middle school lessons starting hopefully early 2023 to get the 8th graders taught the curriculum. And hopefully by the time our 5th, 6th, or 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that have all had the basic grade school curriculum, then have middle school curriculum, then we'll implement the high school curriculum. And so hopefully our current 8th graders will be the first ones that graduate when they're seniors to have all levels of curriculum. All I could tell you is some anecdotal evidence that I wanted to give kudos to both Tony and Andrew, is that this beginning of the year has been great as far as police calls of service and the discipline and issues. There's always issues where people, right? We have conflict. People say things about us and different people that are just part of life, unfortunately, in social media. But from a professional standpoint, as a police chief here, I just want to say both Andrew and Tony and Dusty, although we don't, usually deal with disciplinary issues that much in grade school, but the middle school, things are going really well from our perspective, as well as the high school. There's going to be little issues here and there, but we're real happy with that. We like to say the middle school has all 3 grades have had DARE program, but I think anecdotally a combination with what Tony's leadership is providing, as well as the DARE and having the SSO more available, has been a great success. So kudos again to everybody on that, and we just continue to enjoy our partnership with you guys. And I just want to know if there's any other questions or concerns that you may have, and want to take time to say thank you and appreciate the relationship.
Very nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, on to reports. We have our student council.
Yes, Ashton is here from the high school to give the report. Ashton, if you want to unmute your camera on.
Okay, let's see if my camera works, guys. I'm trying my best.
Alright.
It's a new computer. Here we go. Okay. Oh. 1 second. There we go. Hello. Can everybody see me? Hi, guys. Alrighty. So my name is Ashton, as you can see by the name tag, and I'm the ASB president here at Jervis High School. And it's been pretty slow at the high school, as long as but I really have to point out the health and attendance fair was a lot of fun. People are still talking about it. It was Tuesday of this week, as the chief said, and the bingo was a great hit. It was so much fun. People are still talking about it, so it's really good. I'm glad. I'm looking forward to next year. I'm sorry, I'm flipping through my notes and then I'm flipping back to the camera, so making sure. Okay, for athletics, our first GHS basketball game for both boys and girls starts on the 30th. I'm expecting a good turnout for that. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have our snack shack open as well. So leadership's trying to get that all sorted out with our COVID guidelines still intact. And Mr. Helms today, this is off topic from athletics, I'm sorry. Mr. Helms, the former principal, came in to the leadership class today and talked about us starting a unified basketball team, which would help with us, we would be helping kids in special education with the basketball program. They said we need about 8 kids, and we would just be passing the ball to them and stuff like that, and just helping the game go by a little bit more smoothly, which it seems interesting. I'm going to participate in that personally, so I'm looking forward to that. And as far as clubs go, not a lot of like news to talk about besides our journalism club published their second paper. I believe it was this Monday, and it was a huge success. Lots of kids enjoyed it. They're still floating around the school. It was definitely good. Journalism club has been a pretty big hit, and we've noticed a lot of people have started joining that. So looking forward to that for years to come. And that's all I have. It has been like pretty dry at the high school lately. I'm sorry for that.
Ashton, do we have a Spirit Week coming up?
Spirit Week. I don't have anything about Spirit Week. Bettis has not told me anything about that.
Thank you, Ashton.
Yeah, you guys have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashton.
So this meeting is for federal programs and special ed to do their department report. And so we don't have the rest of the administrators with us. Unless you wanted to ask Andrew or Tony something specifically about their reports, they'll be back next month in rare form.
I just have a quick question on, for Tony, when you have your awards for the kids and things there, is there a reason we can't have their names put on so we know who they are?
So I'm not able to put my video back because,
That's all.
but it's okay. So I was going to put their names on, and I wasn't sure if for privacy reasons, and I know it's a positive
Yeah.
thing, if I was allowed to do that. So I am
that was
happy to do that each month because we do this monthly. So most definitely for both academic ACE and for the character one, I could definitely do that for next year. I'm sorry, next month.
Yeah, I always like to see I'm sure the kids do probably also like to see their names and adult stuff, other than
Yeah.
if they're not in trouble.
Yeah, I
Tony,
can
you're
definitely do
able-
that for you.
You're able to publish that, that's fine. It's not a violation of privacy.
Okay, great. So yes, I will definitely do that. I would also like to put it on our reader board if that's okay too.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. I
Okay,
always like seeing that kind of stuff.
I do
fine.
too.
I think that,
all right, awesome. So the next one is in 2 weeks, so I will do that.
thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and go with Dr. Helms. You're the next contestant here. There are no fabulous prizes, sorry.
There's no points to win. Good evening, everybody. We're not projecting my slides, but I'll just be able to. There's not a lot to show. We'll walk you through them. So, special education and federal programs report for November of 2022. Our special education report, first thing I'd like to highlight is our department focus. So this is the focus of our department for special education for this school year. There's 3 elements to it. The first is inclusivity. And so what that means is that we are making every effort possible to remove barriers so that students with disabilities feel like they are part of the school in any capacity that anybody else is. So that as often as it is safe and appropriate to do so, they are in general education classes with support. For example, we've got a student with disabilities in the high school FLC room who is in our welding class. And so he goes in with a 1-to-1, goes in with Megan and participates in welding. And we provided some accommodations with certain equipment so that he's safe when he's doing so. But he's able to participate. And so inclusivity is a really big piece, and we'll actually touch on that a little bit when we talk about unified sports here in a moment. Pulling from the top is another
strategy that we're looking at as a department focus this year. And what that means, it's kind of a very kind of 30,000 foot perspective, is that in special education, it's oftentimes where you look at a student with a disability, and they may be a ninth grader that's reading at a second grade level, and the natural inclination is, let's go back to second grade and teach them that, and then teach them third grade. And by the time they're 12th graders, it's almost impossible to take what would be a neurotypical approach to learning and apply it to a student who does not see the world in a neurotypical way, a neurodivergent way. And so instead of thinking we just need to go back and build skills over time is not always effective, because it's essentially taking a square peg and round hole perspective, that they just may not be learning in that linear fashion the way that school is often designed and curriculum is designed. And so rather than pushing up from the bottom, we pull up from the top. So what we do is we're learning as we're doing this. But the idea is that if we have a particular student that is an 8th grader or a 9th grader, and they're struggling with handwriting or spelling, but they're excelling in skills that may end up allowing them to be self-sufficient when they are older, that is ultimately the key for everybody, but especially for those of our students with disabilities, for them to be able to advocate for themselves, be able to go out and pursue passion. How many adults in this room are bad spellers? And yet we can be highly successful in what you do. And so at a certain point, we have to be able to say, let's let go of certain things, because we're losing sight of the forest, because we're staring at these trees that we can't get rid of, and start really focusing on the skills that will allow them to become self-sufficient and pursue their passions. And if they're not great handwriters, that's what computers are for. And in some sense, and it's not to say we're abandoning those skills altogether, but it's saying we're looking at how we can help them be successful through a different lens. And, for example, we've had a number of students last year, and then this year, where we've done some testing where we've actually, through approved accommodations on their IEPs, allowed them to do speech to text. So instead of them actually typing it out, for example, a student that may have dyslexia or something like that, Chromebooks have it built in, they can speak it and it will type it for them. And all of a sudden they go from being able to type maybe 1 or 2 sentences that are challenging to being able to have a full paragraph full of their knowledge. And then you sit back and you're like, oh my goodness, like we peeled back a layer and we realized how capable they are. So instead of just forcing them to do something that may not be a key to their success, we actually unravel and untangle some things and give them access to things that will allow them. So that's what pulling from the top is meeting them where they are and helping them along the way. And then disrupting the status quo. I met with the high school and middle school staff 2 weeks ago, and we looked at our data specific to students with disabilities. And I stood up in front of them and I said, it's not acceptable. But I also said that that's my fault more than anybody else, that I own that and we will make changes. And so I want to support them as we go down that road together, but recognizing that how we are approaching special education from a student growth and a student achievement perspective, like it has to change. It just does, because the data objectively is telling us that we are not setting up these students for success. We have to look at it differently. So those are our department focuses. Unified Sports is coming to Jervis High School. We were going to show a video, but for the sake of time and technology, I'll share out the link. We'll be able to watch it. Essentially, you can think of Unified Sports as Special Olympics that actually comes and meets schools in their specific seasonal sports. And so instead of just having a Special Olympics event once a year or during the summer or something like that, we're going to start with Unified Basketball. And so students that are in our middle school, high school FLC class, and then a couple of the 5th graders in the elementary class, they're going to be able to participate as a unified basketball team. Silverton has a unified basketball team. Westland Wilsonville has, and essentially what it is you take students with disabilities that oftentimes high needs disabilities, and it's a 5-on-5 basketball game against another school of the same unified team, and there are 3 students with disabilities and then 2 students in the general education population group, and they play basketball against each other. And We don't keep score. I mean, they keep score, but that's not the point of it. The refs aren't calling fouls or travels, but they're out there in an inclusive way. I've already talked to Tucker. We are ordering jerseys for them that look exactly like the varsity jerseys of our actual players. They're gonna have their names on the back of them. We have 2 coaches already that are gonna be able to help participate. We're recruiting students at the high school. I was there pitching it with their leadership group today. We're gonna have unified basketball this year. We're probably gonna have 4 games, 2 home, 2 away, with a number of practices. When you go to a unified game in Jervis, it's gonna be terrific. If you ever have a chance to go to a unified game of a district that has it established and has been doing it for a while, like Silverton, like it changes your perspective on life. Like, I mean, it is really, you typically have the games just before varsity games and the whole community comes out. You can just imagine the stands are full of kids and parents and noise and laughter and celebration. And it doesn't matter who scores, everybody celebrates. And like you watch those games and you get done and you're like, something. And it's not just, it doesn't just change the trajectory for those students because all of a sudden they realize like, I'm being celebrated for something that I may never have been celebrated for in my life, but it changes the culture and the climate of the school as well. Like those students show up to school wearing their jerseys and all of a sudden kids are giving them high fives in the hallway. And I mean, so it's like, it's fantastic. So we're going to do unified basketball in the winter and we're going to do unified track and field in the spring. Track and field in the spring, they actually, the athletes that want to be a part of it, they just show up to the track and field and they can participate and they may not be scoring members of the high school track team, but if they want a long jump, they're right in queue with everybody else and they go long jump. And we score it as a participation. If we've got enough heats for a 100-yard dash, one of them's in 100-yard dash. And they're wearing the same jerseys. And so it really promotes this sense for those students and for the entire community. And we're not othering them. They are every bit as part of what we do as anything else. So unified sports is gonna be fantastic. I'll talk about it a lot over the next several times as we see each other. Again, kind of the data, again, and I'll just touch on this briefly because I know that we're gonna go into more depth. But like I said, the status quo has to change in how we perceive special education in the district. So a number of the things that I've recently shared with administrators and with teachers is that no one is a special education teacher's student. So I'll use Suzanne as an example, like no one is Suzanne's student. That child is everybody's student. So it becomes everybody's responsibility to help out that child. Nobody is Grant Funderburg's student. Just because they're on an IEP doesn't mean they're that sped teacher's student. They're everybody's responsibility. And when we start changing the narrative there, we start realizing that at whatever space they're in, whether it's a core curriculum class or an elective or lunchtime or whatever, everybody there is to support and figure out how we can lift up that child. And so then all of a sudden you start to see that it doesn't matter what space we're in, we're not othering them anymore. And it's my responsibility as much as anybody else's to help them out. Feedback. We can go to the whole nerdy side of John Hattie and his research on efficacy and how you actually move the needle on growth and achievement. The second biggest thing that any school really has access to change the needle beyond teachers working with teachers in a PLC type environment is giving kids feedback so they can predict their outcomes. They have to be able to predict how they're going to do. And so the only way they can predict how they're going to do is if you give them feedback regularly so they can anticipate that feedback. And that is amplified by students with disabilities. They have to be able to know where they're at and what they need to improve upon so that they can perform, get feedback, and it's a time-intensive process. And I know that teachers are time poor and it takes a lot, but if we don't start making that change and giving feedback regularly, they're never going to be able to predict their outcomes and the needle doesn't move. And so there's that. And then I've given all the administrators, I've given them like a cheat sheet of sorts to look at so that when they're doing their observations, they're in their classrooms, they're doing all these kind of things. I've said, here are 4 or 5 things that I would like you to be looking for your teachers. What are they doing to help out special education students with disabilities? And if we're not doing them, let me know. You can talk to your teachers, gentle conversations, not expecting punitive a response if we don't see it, but we have to be able to start. We can't change what we can't measure. We have to be able to measure it, and sometimes that's just through observation in the classroom. So we've given that to administrators, and we're having those conversations. Really quickly, Jervis was one of a third of the school districts across the entire state that was selected for cyclical reporting this year. It's a new thing ODE is doing that is making sure we're compliant with everything that we do. It was a big hubbubaloo among all the districts that were selected for cohort 1, because the due date was December 15th, which falls right around a whole bunch of other due dates. And I mean, a collective group of us put a letter together, sent it through the ESB up to ODE. It was like, your timeline is really cumbersome. What I didn't tell everybody else is we submitted ours on October 15th. So, but I still wanted to be a team player with my Hispanic friends. So we submitted 2 months in advance. We're good to go with that. 2 really quick success stories. We've got a transition program student who's actually was part of Mount Angel, part of Silver Falls, then came back to us. Wasn't really finding a home. This was a 19-year-old on a modified diploma. Really was struggling. Volunteering in our daycare right now and is thriving. And like, is just struggling to work with other adults and other people, but like was thinking veterinary care because you could be around animals, and we're having meetings with her and her guardian. And we're like, about a 1-year, kind of like a puppy. So let's put you in our daycare for a little bit. And she's there from 9 to 2, 9 to 2:30, Monday through Friday. I walk in there, she's got a baby on her lap. I mean, it's like all of a sudden we found something that this young lady who was 19 and had no direction, partly because of what her disability is like. And now she's like, you know, you can see her, the wheels turning, and it's like preschool daycare may be a fit, which is really, really cool. And the other quick success story, high school FLC is just about ready to start Cougar Biscuits. So it's the transition program that we're really starting up in that room. And I have purchased for Suzanne and her staff some air fryers, some different machines. They're going to start creating dog biscuits to sell. And so they're going to learn how to mix, they're going to learn how to bake, they're going to learn how to do all these kind of things. They're going to make dog biscuits, sell them for $1 to staff or community at different events. All those kind of things. We're going to call them Cougar Biscuits. It builds really good transition program skills for those students. It's also really cute. It's kind of fun. So we'll sell Cougar Biscuits all over the place.
I sampled it last night.
I know they were.
They're sugar-free, peanut butter flavored. Well, anyway, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was actually regular human food that she was putting together.
Yeah.
That, what is wrong with you? She took a bite of it.
Yeah, no, it's all edible. It's like it's safe. There's nothing toxic.
I said, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But it's a really neat, purposeful thing that those students can build some actual skills with, which is really cool. And then I'll just say for federal programs, last slide. Everything's green. We've submitted everything on time. Our Title 1A was submitted and approved. Title III was submitted and approved. For almost everything, allocations go towards directly supporting students. And so supporting salaries, supporting professional development, supporting curriculum and materials. We were really intentional. Karen and I worked really closely for a lot more than she would have liked. As I'm asking questions in my first go around on how to do this. But we were really intentional to make sure that the money that we submitted on how these title monies, and I mean, it's a lot. So like Title 1A it's $325K plus. Title III is $35K plus. So we're talking a lot of money. And we were very intentional on how those funds were applied to directly help students in the immediate. So we're really good there. A couple other reports open up tomorrow that I'm nervous and excited about. But otherwise, to date, we have met all of our submission deadlines and nothing but thumbs up from ODE in terms of their response to them. So those are your SPED and your title reports. This was a cute little graphic of any other buckets that I am responsible for that you might want to ask questions about, and we can save those for another day.
Gosh,
Yeah.
you are busy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very impressive.
Okay, Karen.
Financial.
Karen, did you want the word packet up or do you just want the two documents that we're looking at?
The two dogs.
Okay, which one do you want first?
That first one.
Grant?
is called F, starts F5.
F5, then.
And before I get to that one, on the consent action items I had on the bottom of my board report, I had it about the roof repairs at elementary, because it would be over $30,000. That actually doesn't need a board approval because it's not a personal services contract, which is the only one that needs, if it's over 30,000, that's the one that needs it. This is a construction, and they specifically say what is not a personal services contract, construction. So I kind of was looking for another reason, and I'm like, oh, okay, we don't need to do that. And we weren't ready anyway, because we've asked them for more information. They haven't returned it yet to us. So, and it's gonna be about a $40,000 job. It's two sections of the roof. It's one half in shingles and another part that's flat with a membrane
At the elementary school.
at the
right?
elementary
Yeah.
school. Yes,
And that, it was due to the damage from the storm, right?
right.
Yeah.
Right,
So it's
and
not
aging
anything
roof.
And I'm assuming you got some insurance money.
Oh, yes. Not enough to cover it all, but it was fairly.
It never is, is it?
No. Okay, so next page on this one. Okay, so this was included in your board packet on page 39. And this slide, you had asked for some first student. And so this is a 10-year look back, state school fund, just the state school fund. And just some points I wanted to tap on here, like 2016 on that column. And 2017, that's a biennium, and it was a 49-51 split. So the first year, 2016, they give you 49% of the state school fund. The next year, 2017, they give you 51%. An unusual thing happened in basically it's like the 2017, 18 and 18, 19, which are the next two. You see they're rather, pretty close to each other. That year they did a 50-50, which, most business managers didn't appreciate that because the cost always grows the next year. They were trying to make us feel better that first year because the state school fund wasn't really where it was supposed to be. And so it hurts you the next year. So, and then it went back to the 49-51 for the 1920 and 2021 school year. On that graph on the bottom, I also showed the percent change from the prior year. And I didn't have a lot of historical background on 11, 12, 12, 13, those first two, why that was a dip down. I'm thinking maybe we lost, students counts, or I'm not really sure what happened there. So, and then it moves on and there's, kind of a jump in the 13, 14 school year. And then I go down to that, what says 2019, which is 18, 19 school year. And you see we have another drop. And then the, a big increase. It's kind of like you see that new biennium all coming around most of the time where it's higher and then it goes down. And so that was a 10-year look. And then the very next page, which is going to be 2 there. This one is kind of separating it at the general fund, not just the state school fund, but the general fund per student, and separating it by function code. And if you look at the bottom grand totals for those years, you don't see a big fluctuation between 2012, what we spent per student, and 2021 within the general fund. The difference between that and the state school fund, what makes it more is that the local taxes are included in there. And also there could be carryover funds that get applied, to make ends meet for each year. So, you look at that when 2012, we're at 9277, 2021, we're at 10,940. I will say that this is also that 2021 year, which is the last column, was the year that we were moving things out of the general fund to try to preserve the general fund for what was happening with COVID. And so we were able to grab onto some grants. So now we can go away from that one to the next document. And so this is also, you have a handout of this. And Danny had requested kind of to put a few select grants together. And the first thing I did on this one is just, it has Measure 98, which is also called the High School Success Grant. That is just for our high school students. It has ESSER in orange. That SIA in the dark gray. And the new Latinx After School Grant is showing there in purple. This is the total amount of these grants. And so, you know, the Measure 98 came on in 17-18, and you see that one has grown and, you know, done pretty well. It's going to take a little bit of a dip from what we're hearing. And then you see the orange ESSER, if we spend it all out this year, then it drops off and we don't have anything for next year for that. So these are some of the, you know, the little bits of the drops with that they're talking about. They've been kind of feeding us all these extra funds because of COVID, and these funds are going away. Now, the nice thing is that Latinx grant that Creighton got, and we're hoping that we should be able to get it another year, maybe. So,
It's up there, I have to.
yeah.
That's what you're telling me.
That and the healthcare. Okay, so those are totals. And then the next one is taking the Measure 98 High School Success and just putting it on a per student basis. And again, for, you know, this graphic, this kind of shows, you know, what was allocated through it. And it's, you know, it's for our high schoolers. I think 8th graders can use it too. Sometimes
little
they
bit.
can apply it to 8th graders. And then the next final one is I put ESSER and SIA because that one is for all of the students. And so you can kind of see it in the green is the SIA, that stays, and the blue is ESSER, and ESSER will eventually go away, drop. SIA is projected to go a little lower. And because of that's funded by is it the CAT corporate activity tax? And they're already projecting that they're having some lesser funds in that part of the recession, small recession they're expecting. So that it impacts us when we get funded for the SIA grant. So I hope that gave you some of the information you were looking for on the look backs. And are there any questions about this?
No, it was good information. I was really curious to see, I mean, realizing that all this ESSER money is going to be dropping off. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, I mean, what I really was looking at for was, hey, how much has it really gone up per kid from on the general fund from 20? I mean, to me, that was the most telling. Where is that one chart? That's what I was looking at. I'm like
39.
Okay, so like if you look 39, thank you. Okay, so I mean, what 7,000 2022, right?
Right.
7,321, and then today's grade minus not there. But
Yeah, I think
Oh,
right
we
now
do.
we're
Yeah,
at about
this one.
9,800 for this current.
year, right?
Year.
So I mean, it's, yeah, just makes you, I was trying to figure out from an inflation standpoint, you know, all that stuff. That's
Right.
what I was trying to look at.
Doesn't seem like it's going up enough to meet the fact that, you know, staff all expect raises when they go
Exactly.
from one year to the next. And, you know, things cost more.
And healthcare and everything else that's involved. I mean, that's, yeah. I know I've been making adjustments at work, let me tell you. But I made, what? I've been 13 years. I mean, it's not the same. It's like all my people are starting off a lot higher. Even people straight out of college are coming in double what I made when I came in from college. So, yeah, kind of interesting. That's why I wanted to look at it.
That's no other questions? I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Yeah, Lindsay, I know I'm in the public. Could I make a comment?
That's true.
Was that?
You're not supposed to.
I'm not supposed to?
No.
Okay, I won't. Never mind. I just want to say something about Julie Powers and intents. I'll save it for next time.
Yeah. Okay, so, on my report, the first thing that we need to go over is the, state report card, and so I've got a PowerPoint here. If I can see. Here it is. So I gave you the preliminary data, I think at last week's work session, we talked a little bit about it, but then also I shared that you would have more detailed information in your entire packet. And so, these results were actually released, today statewide. And, as we've talked about, it's not shocking that after 2.5 years of not typical education, when you try to use the same tool that you used when school was normal, that you would have lousy results. And also remember that this test is, I call it autopsy, because you give it at the end of the year and then you have no way to adjust anything for students during that current year. And when you come back following fall to try and talk to kids about their test scores, they often don't remember taking the test, nor is there any motivation for them to do well on the test because it's not connected to anything. It's not connected to graduation standards anymore. Used to be that before COVID, they would take this test, and if they didn't pass it, then they would have to do essential skill portfolio requirements. So there was a motivation, especially at the high school level, to do well on the test, so you're done with it. But now it means nothing. And so we also had a significant number of parents who opted their kids out of the test because they weren't going to put their children through the test. You can opt out. And so in the packet, you'll see that our participation rate didn't meet any of the indicators set by the state because parents were not going to have their kids sit in 3 and 4 hour tests for something that means nothing. So it is very difficult to kind of figure out what can you get out of this information. It's one data point, and we use it with others to see how we're really doing. So when you look at the district overall report card, you'll see that first number. It says 1302. That includes Frontier Charter. So all of the district-wide data includes Frontier Charter, which can be good and can be bad, depending on what data that you're looking at. The other piece is that you'll see here, overall, we have 39% of our students are forever English language learners. So that number is less at Frontier Charter, but because most of those kids are attending our brick and mortar area. And then let's see, you have the 16%, which is tied to students on disabilities. And so our percentage is high in terms of the number of students on identified as IEP students. We're not really any higher than anybody else in the state, but the state likes it to be at a lower level at about 12%, I believe. And
Yeah.
so, and those kids, you don't get full funding for those students either. So for a student that's identified as being an IEP, you get a weighted funding amount, but then anything that goes from 18,000 to 30,000, you don't get any more money. And then after it gets over into that $30,000 range, anything above that, you get cents on the dollar that you spend. So when we have students that go to specialized programs like Heron Creek, and it costs $110,000 a year to educate that student, we're taking general fund money to offset the cost. So that's also a component when you're looking at what general fund monies do we have available, because we are required by the state to provide whatever program those kids need. And so we cannot cut special education services. 21% mobility. That means that 21% of our students moved around. Many of those are migrant kids. Those are also homeless children. And so it is difficult to maintain any sense of normal, regular education and learning when you're moving multiple times in a school year. And then 78% of our kids are on what's called the free and reduced lunch application. Last year it was all free, but at that percentage point, it makes everybody eligible for free lunch according to the federal government. And then we have 10 different languages spoken throughout our schools. So when you have a newcomer program or an English as a second language program, it's not just addressing students who speak Spanish, as we learned last week. It's students who speak Ukraine, Russian, Hmong. And in large districts, they have entire programs that are devoted, like major departments devoted to that. We have the 2 teachers and whatever IAs that we can fund out of that. So then the next piece of the report card talks about who is the staff and how many staff members do we have. So again, administrators, you know, part of Frontier Charter is included in that. We've got 89 teachers, 30 of the educational assistants. You've got 5 counselors. We have 0 licensed librarians. So we have aides, and then they partner with a Willamette ESD librarian and also the state librarian to receive training on how do I run a library media program? What are the requirements? And we haven't had a licensed librarian in the district in a number of years. It's possible since Miss James retired. I'm not exactly sure about that. And then we have 1 school psychologist, and 80% of our teachers have 3 or more years of experience in the district. That experience factor is also weighted in your budget. If you recall that the more years of experience that your teachers have, the more funding that a school can get on that. Often you can also be penalized, then you get less funding if your teachers are below the state average. So the next piece of the report card is about the overall school environment. Depending on which building you're looking at, these little dials change about what they measure, because clearly at the elementary school, you're not measuring 9th grade grad on track to graduate. That's not relevant. But you are looking at regular attenders. And so district-wide, 68% of the students attended 90% of the days. When you do not come to school, you cannot learn. And so this is something that we have really been targeting this last year. The biggest, or this year especially, the biggest improvement we've seen so far is of our 2nd graders. They're finally coming to school every day is important. You know, the first 2 years of their education, they're in COVID, wearing masks. Parents aren't wanting to bring their kindergartners or 1st graders on a regular basis. And so now that we're really seeing our efforts pay off there. At the 3rd grade level, you'll see that of those kids that tested, 23% passed that test, which is below the state average, which is at 40%. But again, if you look at the number of children that do not speak English and you're making them take a test in English, it's not a surprise that they don't know English language arts. That would correlate. And we already know that that's an issue by what we're doing. Mathematics at the 8th grade level, that's one of the state benchmarks. And so we've got 25% of our kids were meeting that benchmark. The state average is 27%. And so prior to COVID, that number had been higher. We had been higher than the state average. In most of these areas, we were higher than the state average during COVID. But as we know, the disproportional impacts of COVID have really nailed our minority populations. They have experienced significantly more loss as families, economically, socially, emotionally, and academically because of their minority status compared to like peers who are in the white population. And then on track to graduate, we had 72% of our kids on track at the 9th grade level compared to the 83% at the state level. But again, when we looked last week at 4-year and 5th-year completion rates were higher than the state average. So high school's looking at what is that little disconnect there in 9th grade? Is it too much transition? What's going on? And we are addressing that as well. Then part of the report card also requires that you include what are your district goals, what are your building goals, what have you been working on? So you'll see the little descriptors that your principals are able to fill in. And then let's look at some academic progress for all 3 of our buildings. So we've got this disaggregated data by student groups at the elementary level. So when we're looking at who are our regular attenders and what population is that, you'll see that our Hispanic Latino students, 59% of them are regular attenders. No surprising that your homeless kids are at 50%. difficult to get to school when you don't know where you're going to be the night before. In English language arts, our Hispanic Latino population is 17% of them are meeting that standard. 43% of our white kids are meeting the standard. And then it plays out here, students with disability, 7%, migrant, 10%. Mathematics, again, this would be, and again, these are kids in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it's not K1, 2. So your 3rd graders who are taking this test have had hit and miss instruction the last 2 years. Your 4th graders are taking the test. They've never seen the test 3rd grade. And so it's harder 4th grade than it is 3rd grade. Math, again, some of the same percentages of achievement based on racial category. At your high school, if you look at some of the disaggregated groups, like in terms of on-time graduation, you'll see that 92% of our white students are graduating on time. And 91% of our free and reduced lunch kids are graduating on time. Females, for the most part, close to 100% of them are graduating on time. Males is a little lower. Regular attenders, again, it fluctuates here depending on what population you're looking at, but ever English language learners and our Hispanics students, we know that they went to work during COVID. They got jobs and they kept their jobs, especially last year, because their families depended on their income. So coming to school every day was often a battle for them because they needed the money to help support the families. So those are just, when you drill down into the data points and you start asking the right questions, then you can develop the strategies for helping kids come to school and be successful learners. Then you have something else called indicator ratings. And so you're rated on a level 1 to a level 5. So in terms of the graduation details, you see that we are at level 3s on several of these categories. But again, they're averaging a year that was not a great typical year compared to 2 other years that were better. And so we are close to level 4s on several of those categories. I would anticipate by the end of this year, you're going to see some significant changes in these data points.
So if we were,
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so if we were to look at 2018-19 compared to 2021-22,
Mhm.
right? I mean, or if you go back even
To
2017 or
yes.
17,
Mhm.
you can kind of compare and
Yes.
realize that it has to do with COVID
Mhm.
and
Especially at the elementary school, like every level in their reading, like you saw, they won an award for, greatest growth. Like
Mhm.
they might not be at the state average, but their kids were making more than normal growth. So they were on track. They were on the projection to be meeting state averages, and then COVID hit.
no, I mean, it was definitely detrimental.
Yeah.
Especially for, I mean, all in general, but I mean, especially if you can't like look at someone's mouth when they're talking or expressions and all that stuff, I mean, honestly, I can't imagine because I'm such a visual person
Right.
anyways, so I mean, when you think about it from that perspective, yeah.
And especially as an English language learner, you're using all of your senses to try to make meaning as to what is going on in the classroom.
Absolutely.
Oral,
Mhm.
auditory, I mean, it's all of it.
It's everything.
So, we, there's some challenges.
It's gonna take years to figure
We
out.
knew that too.
Yeah, we
We knew
did.
that was coming up.
But at the same time, I think that I'm really proud that staff recognizes that and through Creighton's leadership, the idea that we are focusing on ELL and SPED kids and we brought in the state to do tag differentiation, like we're not leaving any population is not being expected to achieve at high levels.
Yeah.
So then you can see this is the participation rate, I mean, of the categories that could be ranked.
Mhm.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 6 that didn't meet in participation.
And it's hard, as you said, too, especially if people are opting out, like, it's not required.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, if I was to take that test way back then, I know for a fact that I would have completely acted like, I mean, this is my own personal experience from being severely dyslexic as a child and being called mental when I was in the 3rd grade because I was so dyslexic, right? And look, I mean, eventually it just takes time, as Creighton said today, of being able to use different senses, do different things. I mean, I'm completely proficient, but I have a whole bunch of tools that I've learned to use to make myself proficient in when I write and when I do my work. So, I mean, and it's using other skills to offset, and it just takes time.
For sure. So about our schools, we use these data points, we do take a look at them. But as I've said, we use them in conjunction with other data points. And that has helped us determine what direction we're currently moving. And we're going to use our strengths, which is primarily our capacity to build relationships with kids and families, just to share with them, academically, you're low, we're here to support you, but we're demanding that you do this. You must do this. You must stay after school. You must come in before school. You must do your homework. We are going to support you in all of these things, because in the end, we want you to be able to graduate and go out and do whatever you want to do. Any questions about that report card?
No, I mean, it's sad and depressing, frankly, but it's not surprising, having experienced everything that we have had in the last several years. So,
And I think it'll come up over the next couple of years, as all the improvements you are making, I mean, all the things that you're doing is in the right direction.
and you guys have been doing that for quite a while. I mean, there's just been a lot of work going on here at the school on all levels from so many people. So I appreciate that, and I feel like we're kind of trying to get back into that rhythm, and I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
With the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the training and everything else.
Okay, so that, the rest of my report will be saved for discussion items. I will just also highlight, we were at OSBA and I was able to present some youth truth information. And thank you. And then I don't know if I'm a sucker or if I should be thankful. I don't know. The Oregon Small Schools Association did elect me to serve on their board, so that, yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, you. I think.
Good to have a voice in there.
Yeah, it's good for us to have a voice. You're exactly right. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have for right this moment. I will have more to talk about later.
Anything for board focus?
You guys want to talk about OSBA?
Oh, I loved going to OSBA. It was wonderful. It was my first time there. I wish I would have been able to do it earlier. But you know what? I realized once I got there, maybe going at the time that I am, like, I think I'm in year 2, was actually better. Because then I really was able to fully get a lot of the educational classes and really understand more things like ESSER funds and rural, school districts and the challenges that we face versus, the larger ones like Portland. And yeah, so it was great. And their keynotes were fantastic. I got to meet people out there in the vending section area. They tried to pilfer us away from our regular architect. Then they had lunch with us, remember? It was really cute. It was great. I loved it. I wish everybody could have done it on the board.
Yeah,
I
no,
really recommend it. And I hope that next year it happens and that we can have the rest of the members go.
no,
Yeah.
gone to it a fair amount of times.
Yeah.
Everyone went to the one in Bend too. That one's a neat one too. The summertime one.
cool. Yeah.
The summertime one is nice.
Summertime one.
It's a little bit more laid back.
Yeah.
So. Okay. All right.
Anything
Grace,
you had to
anything?
add to it? She said she was able to sleep without my snoring, so I think that is a win.
It's very educational. It was educational. I learned a lot.
Yeah, It's just seeing all the other people in the same. Hope is. It's what, 2 years since we did it, right? 2 years?
I
So,
2 years.
what my first impression when I first went there is like, oh my gosh, it is all old people here. There's just no young. There wasn't.
There wasn't either.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so that's what It-
takes energy and retirement
I-
to do these kinds of things.
I guess, but it's good. I was hoping to see a little bit more young coming in, but sounds like it's still all the same.
But think of how much time it actually
Yeah.
takes to like read.
You got.
No, I
We got
understand.
you
No,
7
no, I
pages
understand.
right
I'm not
here,
saying
4
that
days
it-
before,
it's,
yeah.
it's kind of
And,
the easy thing for that generation like that. Yeah.
but it's also educating yourself. That's the one thing that I took away
Mhm.
was how much education I need to truly understand all the acronyms.
Yes, that was my thing.
Okay, and then,
Get a book for
I
that.
mean, and all the policies, processes, the procedures. And I mean, and it's like all the committees and you're just like, my
The
head was
bureaucracy.
literally spinning by the time I'm like, okay,
The red.
I need an org chart kind of a thing. And then like, no, seriously, like, I mean, I went in and I was like, oh, those are required policies? Oh, that's what that means? I literally wrote it on my. Look at this. As I was reading, I'm like, oh, required, no, oh, conditionally required. I mean, like, all these- I mean, because I haven't taken the time, 'cause I've been
Sure.
to like, just go through a bunch of those modules at
Yeah,
ODA, right? So I just haven't had it. And I mean, so from that aspect, it was good just to get in the room and just listen and absorb.
it's really good onboarding training for people who are just coming in and they've never maybe even been to a board meeting before. And we know that that happens all the time since we have 3 people online and the rest of us here. So yeah. You know what I mean? Many people haven't done it. But it was great.
Mhm.
Yeah. we did.
10 items. 86.
80, what was that?
86.
Okay, did you guys have anything or can I make a motion?
Go.
Go for it. I move that the Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors approve the consent items as listed in Mass. 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, and 7.4.
Got a motion?
A second.
Second, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Very good. Action items. Also second readings. We have the one on IGIA. Did we get that worked out or
I
are we
would-
moving on? Are we gonna be?
I would like to pull it out.
okay,
I'd
so-
pull it out and we can come back to it because
Yeah,
there's
yeah, sure.
there's a sentence in there
Yep.
that we need to,
I brought it up at work too, and I had a couple of colleagues read it, and things like that, and it's worded very weirdly, and they couldn't.
yes,
It was like you go either way with it and things there. The one thing that is on there that says that, you know, we are to, how does it read as far as, for us as the district, we are to take it, but mold it to ours?
because it's highly recommended.
Yeah,
Is,
it's highly recommended, but there's something wording in that thing that talks about.
It's on page 104.
104.
Excuse me, 101.
No.
Eyes are going bad.
No, there were in there
this was,
twice.
we actually brought this up in one of the training classes.
Yeah, that could, I didn't see something about that. And you wrote it on.
Yeah, I think the policy got printed twice, Sandra, in the packet. Did it, does that happen? Yes, it did. So I'll just share with you what the conversation I had with Spencer Lewis this afternoon.
Okay,
I showed him on, I'm gonna go with 101 since it's the first time that the policy is printed there. So on item 1, where it talks about, I believe this is what was the piece that was problematic for the, that it promotes abstinence for school age youth and mutually monogamous relationships with an unaffected partner for adults. I said to him, I actually pulled up the statute. It is word for word, like that is what the Oregon legislature passed.
And I absolutely believe that. I just can't believe it snuck through there is what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
I
And so-
understand there's a policy. for
I
that
said,
too.
I'm not exactly sure all that is the issue for the board, but can they add a sentence like, well, the Jervis School District Board of Directors understands that this is Oregon State statute. We do not agree with this statement or something. He's like, yeah, you guys can footnote it. And if the board wants to be on record as saying like, we don't agree with this, doesn't seem within our scope of what a school district should be doing, they can make a note of that. And then, that sets the tone for going to your legislative body and saying, change this.
Yeah, and it
Or,
needs to
or
be.
explain, it in a way that,
You're going
why
back to
did we
them and
choose
they
these?
can't though.
Well, why did we
Yeah.
choose these
Yeah.
particular words
Yeah.
to say it this way?
They're
So,
just using what they got from the state legislature.
no, not that. How, why did the legislation decide?
That's what I'm saying. How did it sneak
Why,
through?
how did they, why were these words used?
I
Because
think you could probably go to Tracy Kramer and point out this in the policy area and that she would probably figure out how to bring it up in committee.
Oh, they would.
You're 20 days late on that one.
So,
Mannix already wrote it.
So then what you need to do is you can just go ahead and say, you have to take action on removing this policy out of your action items. And then you can take action on your other action items.
Let's do that. Let's take action to it out, right?
take it out and
Take
then
it out
for
and then-
later discussion?
Yeah.
Motion on that then to do. Okay, so I, what's there?
Move to this school district, or page 15.
I'm orienting myself. I move that the Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors. I guess. Should I say postpone?
Mhm.
The policy IGAI. Human sexuality AIDS / HIV. For the next meeting,
Next, for later discussion.
for later discussion.
For later discussion. We have a motion.
A second.
Second, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, very good. So now the rest. Anything? Thank you.
we can't do consent by consent, we just do one by one, right?
So the action items, we could probably just go.
If you
If
go to
we're
page
good.
88, then you can just read that, but eliminate
IGA, whatever.
I.
Oh, yeah.
Got it, yeah, yeah.
But
I know. Yeah, I hate it.
slower.
Well. Also doesn't read very well either,
Yeah.
so it makes sense.
Wait, what page are we?
88.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, just need to cheat.
I just don't, just don't read that one.
I move that the Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors approve the changes to policy DBEA and EFA and IGBB and IGBBA and IGBHE, IGDJ and IK as shown in action items 1122 8.1.
We have a motion,
Second.
all in favor?
I.
Right. Very good. We have policy deletion.
That one was.
Probably right next, right behind it, then, huh?
It's on page 119.
Thank you.
I move that the Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors approve the deletion of policy IGBBC as shown in action items 1122 8.2.
We have a motion,
I remember which one that was.
It was the talented and gifted program.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
You redid it.
Second.
we just, yeah,
No,
okay, do we have a second? All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Okay, 8.3 starts on page, well, the motion is on page 122, but the explanation or the report starts on page 123. This is an annual statement the custodial maintenance department is required to give to ODE and any other state agency that talks about who's in charge of pest management and
Oh,
chemicals and have our buildings hazardous or we have, hazardous materials. And so it's pretty straightforward, I mean, because we had.
We had somebody come through too. and-
I think we're good unless anyone had an objection.
It was.
Then I'm gonna move that the Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors approves the annual statement for the Healthy and Safe Schools Plan as shown in action items 11-22-8.3.
We have a motion.
Second.
And second, all in favor?
I.
Aye.
Okay, page 125. They're asking you to vote on Board of Directors, position 12. You'll see that you have just one applicant in there.
Oh, Willie. He's a nice guy. He's been there forever.
It's true. The language is on page 125. You met him at the conference.
Yes. The one,
Oh,
Gal from North Marion.
the North Marion individual. that went-
There's only one candidate.
Yes, there's only
oh,
one
I
candidate.
just abstain then from whatever we need to do on that.
And there's no quorum.
Yeah.
So I guess what do you do? You,
Well, you still have to call for the vote, right? You still have to
Okay.
do that, and then you can vote however you like, and we'll go from there.
Read the motion.
Mhm.
Move Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors cast a vote for William Grout for the OSBA position 12 and authorize Sandra Segura to submit our vote to OSBA. So, have a motion? We need a second.
I'll second it.
So, all in favor? I say aye. So you guys,
And then call for opposed, and then
And
call
then
for
for-
nays.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so, any opposed? Or
I'm just
or
abstaining.
abstain, or abstain.
I abstain.
He rubs me the wrong way too. I'll abstain myself, so.
Right. So motion is then abstained.
Yeah.
That's what it comes to. Good. All right, great, very good. This is what it's all set up for.
Okay, the next one, the language is on page 131. The document just basically recognize or outlines that when the legislative body convenes, which is actually going to be, I believe, January 19th or 15th, I'm getting my dates mixed up. They're convening earlier than they initially thought they were, that when they come into session, that these are the principles or the ideas that OSBA is going to lobby for. And so
Okay.
they talked a little bit about that at convention, but you know, if you look at the priorities, which is in the third page of their packet, they're just looking at protecting the student success account, which is SIA, closing any opportunity gaps that our minority students might experience, contain cost drivers, which means like no unfunded mandates, support local governance, support capital improvements, which would be the inclusion of continuing to fund the Awesome Grant or the seismic upgrade grants. Making sure that your high school kids can earn college credit while they're in high school. And then helping us address any workforce shortages that we're having. And of course, stable funding.
All good things. 31.
Well, these are the first readings, right?
You have to take action on the resolution. 8.5.
It's
First,
just, yeah,
on page 131.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they were all good. I mean, I was trying to figure out how they're gonna do some of the stuff,
Yes,
but,
exactly.
that
All
isn't-
ambitious.
that isn't, wasn't for me too. I mean, like literally I wrote, how?
but it's like every other politician that talks, so.
Yeah.
Go,
Do you want me to make a motion?
Sure,
Okay.
go.
Move that the Jervis School District #1 Board of Directors approves to adopt the proposed OSBA legislative priorities and principles is shown on agenda item 1122 8.5.
We have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Okay, the next thing on your agenda is looking at the timeline for my evaluation process. So I spoke with Kristen Miles. And it depends on what all you want to do. So part of the scholarship that you have with OSBA includes that they run the evaluation process, my evaluation process for you guys. And you have to use their tool, but you have a choice as to whether or not you want to do the 360 targeted survey. So the 360 targeted survey is an additional cost. And last year on that, you spent $1,365 on that. And so that accounts for her time setting up the survey, managing the survey, pulling the data, and then presenting it to you.
My vote for that would be that we don't do that again. We already have that information, but I don't know if you feel like.
You know, I don't think it's a bad thing.
No,
Or you can
it's
build
not.
on it each year. kind
I
of a
see
thing.
what you say on that, yeah.
I
I mean, I
mean,
do feel bad because we don't have the other two board members in here
Mhm.
either, and I feel like.
Let me share her time frame with you, so you
Yes.
have more information. So she can come January 3rd and she can do some of your scholarship work that you need to do. And then she can also do part of the evaluation. But if you decide that you want to do the targeted piece, she could launch it, but she would not be able to do any scholarship work on the 3rd. And so it'll be two different meetings. And so if you backward plan, she cannot come, it has to be done by March 1. So you'd have to adopt the evaluation at the February regular board meeting. And that's where you read the summary of my evaluation. Which means you're gonna have to have another work session because she cannot come to your regular meeting on January, I think it's 15th. So she's only available January 3rd, and then in February. For your actual meetings that you have set, you'll have to schedule another one if you want to do the targeted piece.
Okay, so she can come on January 3rd, but it would be not about the evaluation, it would be on the other piece.
It would be both. She could
Both.
guide you through the preliminary evaluation tool.
But if we,
But if you want to do the targeted piece, then she would only be able to do part of the evaluation and none of the scholarship work, she said. So regardless, you're gonna be building in another meeting to deal with the evaluation piece.
right. Okay, I still feel like maybe with the other two folks not here. I'm looking to you two as well.
I'm good with, I also like the idea of having that, that we've done it previous and just to continue to see how the.
Building upon it.
Yeah, building.
Just
upon
for
it.
like they do for the board, I think too.
Yeah.
I don't think they've done that in a really long time.
Nope.
That's a good idea. Okay, let's do that, then we'll just
We'll make another meeting.
make another.
And just like you said, too, but yeah, we don't know what they. Fine either way.
Okay, I will reach out to her tomorrow and kind of figure out what she wants for next
Okay.
session.
That sounds good.
I was getting ahead of myself, wasn't I? On my.
On
This-
push through.
That was so hard for me to follow sometimes.
All right. This is just first reading anyway, so.
I guess I did have one weird question, and maybe it's the way it was reading, and maybe I was reading only at night, and it was on graduation requirements, 136 page. For any student identified above, the district shall apply any credits earned by the students in applying, an educational program in the state. Applying those credits towards the state requirement for diploma if the credit satisfied those requirements in that educational program in the state. So, and they're you're deleting district or whatever, but if you're coming in, it says in this state. So is that just the state of Oregon, or is that like coming in from, if it say someone's coming in from Idaho? Why wouldn't you accept? I was trying to figure that out. I mean,
Yeah,
would I-
as long as they're coming from an accredited institution, regardless of what state it is, we're required to accept those. I don't know why it just says the state.
that's, I just thought it read kind of odd. So I was like, is that, okay. Just making sure, because I'm like, you know,
They had that little footnote at the bottom.
Or even for the correction. I just think
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
right.
good.
but then it says, or funded or provided by ORS, you know what I mean? So that's why I was confused by it.
Budget is long-term care for treatment facilities.
Or hospital identified in Oregon, so it's like, it made it just sound like it was just Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah, that's all. I was just clarified.
So page 146 starts Frontier Charters draft agreement. You're scheduled to. Doesn't have all the changes. Okay, well, it's draft, so. So some of the changes are highlighted in red. I think the biggest change or the biggest adjustment that you need to be aware of at this point in time, and we've talked about this before, is that they're asking for a 10-year commitment from us. And so when I asked them, like, why do you want a 10-year commitment? They, you know, for stability purposes, where they're trying to recruit both staff and
Sure.
students, because they have to be sponsored by a district, it just provides that continuity.
Sure.
Not to say that if something went sideways, there are plenty of provisions within the contract that allow you to either side to give notice and conclude the contract. We also sent this on to our attorneys, and so they're still reviewing it. And so if they find anything that's, you know, hey, we better talk about this, or they don't agree with it, then what I will do is pull you into executive session under contract reviews and we discuss it there. But I mean, the relationship seems to be working pretty well. The funding, I mean, it's a win for us.
Yeah, I don't see why it would be a bad thing. though,
Yeah.
to do it.
I mean, some people
To do
don't, you
that.
know, if they don't have a good graduation rate and they don't do a good job of tracking kids, that
Right.
can be a problem for the district, right? Because
But they
your
have to-
dropout rate reflects what they're doing, your testing scores reflect what you're doing, but they are doing a pretty good job,
Yeah.
so.
All their stuff it seems to be within what it should be. So, do you guys, why we wouldn't
No,
set them up for 10 years?
and the contract read really well. There's only one area that I had a question
Okay,
on page 154, and I think it's just, it's more of the state assessments will be offered and participated, encouraged annually as outlined with the state regulation during the 2021, 22
oh,
school
yeah,
year.
that,
Can you just take, I mean, because that's,
that
I'm like,
date, yeah,
yeah, thank you.
probably not having dates specific in there for
Uh-huh.
those kinds of things. would
Yes,
be-
that's the only one I saw.
Okay. Like that. Okay, so then as we continue to review and make changes on that, I'll point those out, and then I believe we're supposed to adopt that contract by January, is that right, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, January, okay. Okay,
Great project.
yes, so let's talk about something really exciting, HVAC.
Well, for the people in that school, probably. They would be
Yeah,
happy
we-
about
yes,
being
it would be really exciting for
1,000
them, right?
degrees
Yeah,
or
yeah.
5
So-
below.
So kind of what I wanted to do is give you an overview of where we're at with the ESSER 3 money. Karen gave you the graphs about what, you know, when that money is going to run out, what that looks like, and then also in relation to HVAC needs at the elementary schools since the bond didn't pass. We know that 20% up to 20, about 20% of ESSER funds have to be spent towards lost learning. The rest of it could be spent towards HVAC, other things, HVAC, other
Mhm.
things. But really, the purpose of the money is to make sure your buildings stay open so you can educate children. And so we were hesitant to just throw that money into an HVAC piece when we didn't know were kids going to come back.
Correct.
Did we what staffing needs do we have? We can't fire all these people or lay them off, and then all of a sudden 100 kids show up and now we don't have the staff to serve them. So there's a lot of, there were a lot of unknowns as we were going into this year. So what we have is that we know that all of these ESSER funds have to be spent by September 30th, 2024. So you still have quite a bit of time. Available for these last 2 years, this year and next year, was just over $1 million. So for our budget for this year, right now, we have set aside $398,000 for staffing. So that's one teacher from the elementary school, because we did not want to lay her off in case more kids showed up, which they have been doing. Initially, we had the nurse in there, but we were able to move her out. We have an instructional assistant in there, and we have the TOSA, the attendance and discipline TOSA, and also the literacy TOSA. And so as kids are returning, we're taking the staff, the staffing, and we're putting it back into the general fund, because we want our staffing to accurately reflect the number of kids we're serving as close to possible, so that we aren't artificially keeping all of these people employed. And if the kids never show up next fall, now all of a sudden we're having to make huge cuts. So that number is a little bit in flux right now. We had set aside some counseling money for professional development planning, just under $5,000. Extracurricular classroom supplies, electives and equipment, just under $40,000, because that was the purpose of the money. Keep kids in school, keep them after school, give them more instruction, give them more ways to connect so that they want to come back. And then all of these things that, the district hadn't traditionally been able to purchase, we were able to purchase to support that. Laptops, PE equipment, that kind of thing. So for custodial maintenance is spent $500, and that's on the air purifier filters that we've had to replace. And again, if they need more money, then we can take money out of extracurricular classroom supplies. So we have the ability to adjust some funding. And then the part that has been unexpected, and thank goodness we have ESSER money, is the number of newcomers that we have coming that do not speak any English and that we did not have staffing for. And so having classrooms set up for those kids and supporting them in their language as they're learning English, we've got now just under 20,000 budgeted. And then we are required to share part of these funds with the charter school. And so they had a need for a speech language pathologist, because they do have kids that are on an IEP who are enrolled there, and they needed some of these services. So we gave them $12,000 to pay for that. So that subtotal is $474,882. So then there's your subtotal again. So we know from the architect's estimate when we were going for the bond that the HVAC upgrade at the elementary school was going to cost about $462,000. Now, she had priced that out with a start construction date of 2024 and built in a 6% inflation. Not quite enough, probably. And so that I guarantee you that's going to be more than that.
Okay.
And then we also had identified in the bond that we would do an HVAC upgrade to the shop, because we know that in the metals in the wood shop that HVAC system is insufficient. And so that cost was about $80,000 for that. And so that total, if those numbers were all true, and that's exactly what it was, it's $1 million and 16,000. And so that leaves us with $62,000 unallocated. That doesn't leave you much for staffing for next year. So if this is the direction that we're going to go, we need to be next spring preparing for what those staff reductions could look like. Or do we have other funds that can pay for these people? Or did we get enough kids that returned that support the staff? And then just as a comparison, because we did the HVAC upgrades at the high school right before COVID hit. So that project, which this is not the cost for the lighting upgrades or the energy piece, but just the replacing the boiler system, getting the all the vents going, the HVAC components in the classrooms and repairing those, that was just over $700,000. So was a bit more of a larger project in terms of number of rooms being serviced, but not as complicated as how complicated the elementary school is going to be, because it's all of these pieces put together in weird constructed ways. So another piece I wanted to share is that the excise tax balance, we're getting another check from the city. I confirmed that today, that they cut the check today. So far that is at $127,000. So if you're looking for ways to pay for this, Rebecca will be continuing to crunch the numbers. We're looking at how do we go out to bid for this. We believe it can be through a coalition or a consortium. It's on actual RFP proposal. And so if you decide to go for a bond in the spring, then probably what we're going to do is in the early winter, we're going to start conversations about how do we get a bid for something like this so that you're marrying funds. You maybe have a bond, but even if a bond doesn't pass, you still have money to be able to do the HVAC piece. But that will come with a choice. Your choice is we recognizing that we're going to have to reduce staff, and we're going to make the choice towards HVAC. I mean, that could be the choice, right?
If numbers don't come back.
If the numbers don't come back. And so that's just something for you to chew on right now.
No, the guy you have to make decisions on.
Yeah. That's true. Okay, so obviously that will be the first conversation we have about this issue, but I just wanted to plant that seed in there. And because I know when we reconvene the pre-bond planning committee here in a couple of weeks, that's going to be one of the questions when we start looking at projects to identify, to figure out how to reprioritize what can we accomplish with other funds. That could be possible. Okay. So the last one is on SIA. And I'm required to give you the annual report for this year and what our spending for last year and what our spending plan is for this year. So if you remember, the student investment account was passed with 4 areas that we were supposed to focus on, all schools. Reducing class sizes, creating well-rounded education for kids at all levels, increasing instructional time if possible, which doesn't necessarily mean making the school day longer for all staff. Maybe it's a before or after school program or a summer school program. And then addressing the health and safety needs of our students. And that primarily deals with social, emotional, and mental health. And so when we created the 21-22 spending plan, these are the areas that we identified, and you saw this last year. And so we had a total of about $823,873 to spend. So the teaching and learning TOSA, that's Bonnie Atwood. You saw the work that she's doing to try to align our curriculum. We've got the alt ed teacher at the high school. That's how we were able to close Sam Brown and bring those kids back into the building. We've got a school psychologist that we're able to pay for with some other funds that we're blending. This is how we're paid for your school resource officer, your student success officer. That's a grant partnership with the city as well. Their portion is funded by a grant. Your textbook adoption. So basically every year we'll be doing a textbook adoption. We had budgeted $238,000 for language arts. We spent more than that. We spent a lot more than that. And then after school language. So we had Russian and Spanish we offered last year. We also had to buy more materials for Spanish class. We have our Willamette Career Academy. That's a low cost for last year. It's much more this year, but that was just year 1. And then we thought we were going to have to provide transportation. We didn't. So we were able to roll that 10 grand into this cost here to pay for slots. We were not able to find a drug and alcohol counselor. So we had some extra money there, which helped us pay for a textbook adoption piece. And then parent communication engagement activities, that was about $40,000. We're able to take indirect costs, and we take indirect costs off of every grant. And that's how we pay for the extra FTE over the business office to help manage some of these grants and that funding. And then when you get new textbooks, you have to have professional development to figure out how to use them and learn about that. And then we knew that our tag services were not up to par. That was one of the Division 22 standards I reported on last year. So we needed some seed money to get that going. And then as the year progressed, we recognized that we needed more help and more resources for our kids that were chronically absent. So we needed to be able to send people out, do home visits, and to have meetings with specialists and to send out mailings. And so we had some money that we could carve out to make that happen. So there are 4 required questions for the annual report. At any time, if you have a question, you know, stop me. They want to know what changes in behavior did we, or actions or policies did we observe, and how did they contribute to our goals and our overall plan? So by having that money available, there's a level of accountability to accomplish certain goals. Bonnie's Atwood's job was to get all of the curriculum online and get teachers to talk, and we have that product. There's a stability in leadership and, you know, with Bonnie there and each of us having a task with the strategic plan, it allowed people to know, like, we're asking the questions, we're putting it out there that we're accountable. We expect you to implement these strategies or these processes that we're asking you to do. Having money available to purchase materials is a game changer. It has been more than 20 years that you've been able to do a K-12 adoption. How do our kids ever compete if they don't have the materials, if the teachers don't have the resources? We're able to pay staff to attend professional development and for planning time. That takes a lot of time to put all of that together and to talk with one another about how do we make this work in a K-12 system. We're able to offer more robust electives, not just with the Willamette Career Academy, but we're now able to offer electives to our middle school kids that are not teacher driven. It's not, oh, well, what are you good at teaching? What are you good at? It's, oh, what do our kids want? Oh, our kids want to be in the auto shop. Our kids want to take an art class. So we have those ability to be able to do that. We were able to hire a writer and publish that newsletter every 6 weeks. And then funding dedicated towards addressing mental health issues. So what barriers or challenges did we have? And what adjustments did we need to make? So there's a lot of fatigue by everybody last year, asking people to stay extra in the evening to try and coordinate with their K-5 counterparts when K-5 teachers have already been out an hour and a half before the 6 through 12 teachers do. You know, you're not going to get them to come in on a weekend like that. They've just had enough. And so some of the teachers that didn't have other family commitments were able to commit to that, but there was definitely a decrease in the amount of people that were willing to work in the summertime and even with the time card. So again, when we saw the problems about, you know, we don't have enough resources to have the conversations with kids and families, why aren't you coming to school? We added money to that to help address the challenges. When you can't find anybody to hire, you can't hire that person. And so as much as we would have loved to have a drug and alcohol counselor, we had to address that in other ways with small groups and outside resources. And then I think the parent community engagement efforts, it was a good start, but I feel like it was really limited to only those people that are already connected to our schools. They're either already parents or grandparents, or they work for the district, or a family member works for the district. And so if they weren't on our mailing list through Parent Power School, or they weren't on social media, we're not really connecting with those people. So, I mean, I think it was a good start, but also because we don't have a library where I can put the newsletters. I mean, not very many people come in, go actually inside City Hall, pay their water bill.
Right.
There's not a grocery store where I can put that, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got some disconnect going on there. The next one includes ongoing engagement. So as we have this money, we have to be checking, how are we doing? Are we meeting needs? Do we need to make adjustments? So again, Youth Truth Survey, we've done that now. We're just ending up our 3rd year with that. And we've also had several community engagement meetings, tours, surveys through SurveyMonkey, community-based celebrations, and then building and department-specific engagement opportunities. So I feel like that we've been able to reach a variety of people if they were wanting to come into the district, or if there was a topic that was of interest of them, we tried to have an event that would address that. I don't know that they all came. You know, we have a presence on social media. We started that quarterly newsletter, and then I do believe that we are seen as a positive organization, which is supported in the number of people we have coming to the different events. And also the feedback we get from the survey, and for the most part, when we're posting things on social media, people are liking it, they're commenting on it, they're supporting that kind of thing for the most part. And the district has also not become a huge target of frustration like other districts and other communities. People are angry, they're angry about their school systems, they're angry about the economy, and oftentimes it's easy to kind of pick, okay, the school district serves the majority of kids, obviously, in a community, but also is kind of the rallying point. And so we have had people come to express their displeasure or their not agreeing with what we've done, but I feel like every time we've had that situation, we've been able to come to a compromise and common ground for the most part. And then when we think about our choices and prioritizing this year, what stands out and what have we learned that's impact the future implementation efforts. So many of the things that we'd identified prior to COVID and that winter before COVID hit turned out to be very relevant. We were already looking at social, emotional, mental health needs, and we were already looking at attendance. And so, you know, that kind of put us ahead of the curve a little bit. We knew, we had heard our kids already wanted more. Their parents and students were saying, we want more electives, we want more opportunity. Well, Emmett Kerr Academy just happened to fall in at the right time. That made it easy for us to address that need. And that piece, along with the other things that we're looking at, is creating this interest among other kids who maybe would have left the district for other districts, or kids coming back to us from other districts. And then I think that when you start looking at the things that you're able to offer and you're able to implement, that's when it becomes clear how disadvantaged we were. When you start having all of these choices and offerings, you don't realize, wow, how narrow were things really before we had the ability to use this money. And then the priorities for the coming year, you know, we're not going to throw out the bathwater and start new. Like we're building momentum and we're going to move forward. I think that if we started throwing things out and changing direction, we would lose staff buy-in. That would be frustrating for students. If something's not working, we are making adjustments, but we know that, you know, focusing on counselors and having them available is important and a priority. If the program is not quite working the way we want it to, we're going to get them some more training, get some more feedback from kids, and alter the program. So here's our spending plan for this year. We have $904,721. So again, you've got some of the same staffing, TOSAs, alt ed, psych, officer. And so what I've been doing is I've just been adding to the textbook adoptions as we do each new one. So we've done social studies, English language arts. We have EL that we have to do, and also math. $176,000 is not going to come anywhere close to what we need. But I believe that there are some cushions in some of this money where I'll be able to address that. But then what can happen is that July 1, we get our next round of money. So I will finish the adoption then. So it'll, the 1 year adoption comes out of 2 years worth of funding. Again, you'll see our costs for Willamette Career Academy have gone up because now the building's open and we have 6 programs running, but we also have 31 students attending. So 31 juniors and seniors total are attending that. We don't have any costs for transportation for that. And we've eliminated the drug and alcohol piece. I've upped your parent communication and engagement because you'd asked me to have those newsletters include kind of a board focus, like what's the board doing, and sending that out to all of the, you know, 1 per household registered voter. So that increases costs. And then more professional development, more areas for our tag. We built in chronic absenteeism, more professional development for counseling department. Our elective teachers needed to have some professional development. It's interesting to try and watch a high school teacher who's used to working with seniors having to teach eighth graders now. So there's a challenge there. And then our core content and grade level teachers need time together. We did implement a new category, the student newspaper. So as you heard, the Inkling has been brought back to life. And so out of this fund, we're using to pay for the printing and production costs of the Inkling. And then professional development with equity and inclusion. For instance, we had our first training with Mo Carrick for the whole leadership team on Tuesday night, where she came in and talked about team leadership and how are we strong leaders. And it included instructional assistants and staff. So like key people from each building that support the building principal and the work. None of that would be possible without this money, but all of that work is still very important.
So then. We're getting that many, how many more years?
Well, forever.
Oh, it's forever.
Maybe not quite that amount, but that's why your OSBA says that's a priority, because that
Well,
was,
that's what they're part
Uh-huh.
of, that they're.
yeah,
legislation.
student investment account was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
So it's just like that it varies, and that's the thing, you can't count on.
right,
you can't know how much.
That much.
right.
So you won't know until, when will they tell us?
We will know for next year. They're saying, we'll know in March. Okay.
It's money from the corporation, right? The tax
It's for
and
the
corp-
corporate activity tax, which is, Karen was reporting, we got the state revenue forecast. And so when they talk about that corporate tax going down a little bit, that's because they're projecting a recession, a slight recession. So the idea is, people are buying fewer goods and services. And so that's where we get that money from, the sales of those things. So,
And that is based on how many kids we have in this.
yeah, it's an ADM. It's weighted, it's a funding formula. Yeah. So the more kids we get, we do get more money.
I mean, do they take into account other things like poverty rates and things like that? I'm just curious. I mean, because really, I mean.
Yeah, let's see exactly what they do on that. Like if they look at IDA and PLL and
It just makes me wonder, because like
Yeah.
when we were sitting there talking, when we were sitting in one of those meetings.
The rural school
the
district
rural school
classroom.
district, yeah, because I was like, are we really a rural school district or not? Because I mean, I honestly, we're crunched between Salem Kaiser has 66,000 students or
Right.
whatever, they just passed a what, $700,000
million.
$700 million bond. I mean,
700, and they going for another one.
I'm gonna share something with you. I'm not gonna tell you what the district is.
Uh-huh.
But I was at the Willamette ESD superintendent's meeting today, and there are two superintendents that are getting ready to talk to, that are gonna talk to each other. They're gonna have a joint board work sessions about consolidating their districts.
Are they really?
Two rural districts locally
Wow.
who cannot make it work anymore.
yeah,
And so when people say it's not a thing,
it is a.
it
thing.
is a thing.
No, I mean, when we look at where we're located,
Mhm.
I mean, not that I want to get down this bunny trail,
Yeah.
but honestly, it was just listening to
Yeah.
those rural districts. And I thought to myself, we're less than 5 miles from Woodburn.
Right.
I mean, and then Salem Kaiser is right there. I mean, we're right, it's,
Yeah, folks don't get it here.
I
They don't
know.
understand it.
Well, I think when
Yeah.
when it hits the papers about what those two districts are doing, it's close enough that people are gonna go, wait, what now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
so, and that's why I was asking about that. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
because of.
Right.
But I'm like trying to figure out, okay, from an equitable standpoint, because we talk so much about equity, right? And I am all about equity and the whole being equitable, but our kids don't have, it's not equitable to have. You have brand new schools in
Right,
Woodburn
right.
and all
around us.
all around us, and the facilities are so much nicer. I mean, we were just at the high school in Silverton,
Oh.
and it just is like, from an equitable standpoint, it just doesn't seem equitable.
Yeah.
That's a
They
great way to-
don't, yeah, they don't walk the talk. And that's the real problem. And so when we were in there in that meeting with all of
Just
the
like-
other rural school districts. Like they were also the bus driver and the cook and the stuff. And I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
You know,
I
and
was like,
they were all saying the exact same think that we are.
That we're saying from a.
They don't have the,
Really?
don't have the funding and they just don't care. So it's like,
I mean, how is it fair that you can't offer a chemistry 2 class because you don't have the proper classroom? You have a classroom from the 1960s. It is not a chemistry 2 class of the 21st century.
Right.
But down the road, in 3 directions, you do.
that's it right there.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I mean, exactly, that's the thing.
Right.
So,
You know, we can only do what we can do.
yes, I know, but I was, that's why I was asking. Is
So I did include there, I got just like right before the board meeting started, the update from Lauren from Piper Sandler on what the cost would be for a bond. How we were talking about. Oh, here it is. I'll look at my paper. $1. Might have given you all of it.
$1.97.
Right,
And $1.59.
right.
Mhm.
And so, nothing to do with it except just have it for right now. I have a planning meeting with Rebecca Stuker tomorrow to talk about our planning that meeting that is on 28th. And so Henry and Anna, you guys were both on that committee. I sent you an email.
I'm like, oh, no. Okay.
You don't have, I mean, like, it's entirely up to you, but I sent you an email about when the first meeting is and the logistics of it.
And it's coming up roughly.
Yeah, on the 28th, so a week from Monday.
Gotcha.
And the people that are new to the committee will come at 5:30 so that we can get them up to speed.
Okay.
In the email, I also sent them links to all of the pre-bond work that we had done last year so that they understand like this has been done, this is what we, and then everybody comes at 6, we'll feed people and then we'll figure out, okay, now what?
Right, but, and you sent the email already.
I just sent it just before the meeting.
Oh,
That's why,
so
yeah.
That's why I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I sent it.
Because I was on it this morning. so Get this. Okay.
Oh.
Anything else?
Nope.
Very good. All right, so these are agenda items, not. We're adjourned.